Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is the November meetup of the OpenAI Application Explorers. So this month we're going to talk about the OpenAI Agent Builder. So that was released at the start of October at the OpenAI Dev Days. Normally we get about 50 people signing up, and about 20 show up on the day. So today we had 10 times that sign up for the meeting, and I'm expecting probably about 100 people going to show up. So please be patient if something goes wrong. We also muted everybody because we didn't know how many people were going to turn up. But I am interested in your questions. So if anybody's into this and if they have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get to them. I do get fed up with the sound of my own voice after a while. Please be patient if something goes wrong. We're using Zoom. We normally use Google Meet, and so there may be stuff that doesn't work too well today. Okay, what else are going? Yeah, and if you are, there were so many new members. We obviously hit a chord here. Resonated with a lot of people. So there is 18 months of meetups that we've done on the OpenAI API. So if you want to go and check on those, there's a playlist on YouTube, and the link is on the discussion board on the meetup if you want to take a look at those. Okay, so usually what we do is we begin with a little OpenAI news, what's been released this month, and remind everybody of something to look forward to in December. So there is a thing that OpenAI did last year, which was called the 12 Days of OpenAI, which started December 1st, December 2nd. I'm really hoping it happens again. So they basically released a new feature every every day. So hopefully we get that again. And then the meat of this session is basically building up my little call center agent with the OpenAI Agent Builder. And then next month, the other second big thing that was announced at the OpenAI Dev Days at the start of October was the Apps SDK. So that lets you integrate your own app into the ChatGPT conversation. So essentially, if you have a SaaS app, an API, a REST API, if you connect it with the SDK, then you don't have to leave the Chat GPT web interface. You can basically talk to whatever it is you're doing. You may have seen it already. There's Booking.com is in there and Spotify's in there. It is on a kind of a slow rollout, so you may not have seen it, but that's probably what we're going to do next month, unless something amazing happens in the 12 days of OpenAI. And if it does, we might just switch and change that. So okay, so what's the news? What happened in the last month? So there was huge fanfare when ChatGPT 5.0 came out. So 5.1 was released to much more muted kind of news. The good news is we can call the 5.1 API from Python. So here's what the code looks like in Python if you're trying to call it from the API. So essentially, what we're doing is we're very different from the ChatGPT interface. We want to use everything, locally. We want to use everything from the command line, integrate it in whatever we have in our backend. So if this is the standard way of calling it, you got to put in your API key. You got to do, and I'm saying this for all the people who are new to this because we have so many new members. We have the client responses.create, whatever the model is that we're trying to use. You have different types of personas who can talk, so it's user and assistant. And in this case, we just have the user, i.e. us, asking a question, tell me a nerdy joke about computers. And then we just print it out. So that's basically what it looks like. I am going to show you that real quick, just to show it works. So usually what I do is I set up my own environment. And then I'm assuming it's going to give me a really terrible joke because this is the one reason I know that LLMs are not going to take over the world because they can't tell good jokes. Okay, any second now. Okay. Oh God, it's being nice to me. Okay, we'll return to that in a second. I did want to show a couple of things while I was here. This is the resources that I'm going to use tonight. So the first thing is we have all of the code that I'm working through today. So here is some code for basically creating a fine tuning. This sample and test workflow, basically that's calling how you call the agent builder for the command line. I also have this faker folder in here, and basically what that is that allows us to create our fake call center call records, customers and call records. Maybe it'll come back to me. Yep. Okay. Why do programmers always mix up Halloween and Christmas? Because October 31st is not equal to December 25th. Okay. Like I said, yeah, they're never going to take over the world. Okay. Let's go back to where we were. So this is the finished project. So the agent builder is made up of a bunch of nodes. I don't know if you've had a chance to play with it yet. We basically, the very least we have a start and we have an end node. Then we have agents who do particular tasks in the way that I set this up. There are a bunch of different templates out there that you can look at. I'll show you where to find those in a second. And what I did is I basically copied the customer service agent and then changed it for the purposes of doing a call center agent. I currently work for a company that does drone development, but when I first moved over to the US in the late 90s, I was working for a lot of telephone companies, did a lot of call center work. And I'm hoping to kind of get back into that by using some of this technology. So what do we have here? We have guardrails, which is a big thing. I think the agent builder is great. The guardrails, what that does is it stops any weird hacking or prompt injection that's going to go on. There's also other guardrails in there. I'll show you that in a second. We have our triage agent, which is saying, what is the person looking for? Are they looking for information about their last calls? Maybe they got charged too much. Are they looking for technical support? My internet's down. What do I need to do to turn it on? And are they looking for information about different plans that they could switch to? So the way that I set this up, because I wanted to show the different things that you could do to tell a story. So the first one here, the last call agent, so that talks to a customer database. So we don't, obviously there's no telephone company. So what we did was we created a fake telephone company with fake call records. And then I need to be able to get my agent builder, which is sitting in an OpenAI on the playground. And I'll show you the playground in a second. And I need to be able to connect to that. I need to connect to my database remotely. So we use a thing called MCPs. So it's the first big thing that we want to be able to talk about when we're talking to our agents, because our agents need to connect to the outside world, to Oracle databases, maybe to scheduling, so you can set up an appointment so the person can go out and talk to you, or a CRM if you're doing something that's not call center related. The technical support, so there are bunches of questions and answers that call center folks will get asked over and over again. So the obvious things would be, hey, what time are you open? What's your support number? My internet is down, that kind of thing. So if you ask ChatGPT, it's going to come up with its own answer, but you need your answer because you have a bunch of specific questions and answers that your call center people get asked all over again, over and over again. And they're probably in a bunch of call center scripts. So basically what you do is you use a thing called fine tuning. So you take a ChatGPT model and then you add your specific questions and answers and you put that on top, layer that on top of the model. And then when ChatGPT gets asked a question, it goes, oh yeah, this is a question that's not in my database of Wikipedia, YouTube, whatever I've done. This is some specific questions that we want to do with our fine tuning. So that's great. So then we have connections to databases. We have having Q&As that are specific to our specific business. And then the last thing is plan information. And I wanted to add another piece in there, which is file storage. So our file storage is brochures, it is core values, it is FAQs maybe, although they might live in technical support too as well. So basically it's PDFs of stuff that we sell that we want to put in there. And then ChatGPT will extract the information and tell the user about how much more it is for moving from the basic to the unlimited plan, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's essentially what we're trying to do. So now we know where we're going, let's talk about how we're going to get there. And like I said, I've chosen this because it's got all the cool features that you can use with ChatGPT within the Agent Builder. So you can create something that is altogether useful as opposed to just kind of like a proof of concept. So here are the steps. So ChatGPT is not going to know anything about our business. So we need to fine tune one of our ChatGPT models to answer questions like, when are we open? We might need a fine-tuned model for billing, one for tech questions, one for winbacks. Winbacks is when the customer wants to leave and you want to make them keep your service. But at the moment, we're just going to keep it to basic questions like my internet is down. And then every telephone company has a database of customers and their calls. We need first to create that database. And we're going to use an MCP. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol to connect to it. So MCP is basically allows you to talk to any backend database or API in English, which is just one of the coolest things about what you can do in the last year using LLMs and ChatGPT in particular. So next, we're going to design the agent in the drag and drop interface. So we have a working app that we can call from initially the command line. Now, so the easiest way to, well, the simplest way to expose it is on the command line, just like I called that API here. But obviously, that's not very customer friendly. So the next easiest way to expose it is to use a ChatKit SDK, which OpenAI provides a really simple example. So basically, we use we take our workflow ID, so our agent builder ID, we put it into their ChatKit SDK, and we have a working chatbot. So I'll show you how that works, assuming the demo gods are good this evening. And then the second thing is, I really want to, chatbots are great. Put them on your website. But the goal here is to maybe not replace a call center, but certainly to replace IVR. So that interactive voice response thing that you get where you press one for billing, press two for sales, which you always end up in a loop and try to press hash all the time to try and get out of it. So what I want to do is see if there's a way to use the call center agent to at least replace the IVR. So there is another really cool demo that OpenAI provided, so we can use Twilio to call our agent. So I'll tell you about that right at the end, assuming that we don't run out of time. Okay, so I was playing around with ChatGPT and trying to come up with something. So I kind of was like spinning off on the T-Mobile. So it's the name of the company I have is Reese. So we're calling it Or Mobile or Reese Mobile, and we sell mobile service. So that's what we do. And then I asked ChatGPT for a tongue-in-cheek tagline, and it came back with our bars are low, but our standards are lower. So we're going to go with that because I think that's actually something that we can use in our marketing. So typically, if I was designing the call center to replace a real system, I'd use recordings, like past recordings, to figure it out. So I'd want to know who was calling, what were the most common questions that our call center agents have to deal with. So I don't really have any historical data here, but it's there's a lot of call centers that have been running for generations now, so that information's out there. But so I can ask ChatGPT to create different personas, different people that would be calling our call center for my fake telephone company. So ChatGPT here gave me a really good cross section of users, from the frustrated my internet is down customer to the international traveler. So it's the kind of obvious questions that people would be calling into. And also ChatGPT created customer scripts for each of these conversations, which is really useful if you want to take this demo and then try to push it towards a production system. There are a couple of ways that you can do that. You can do that with fine tuning, or it's also really cool for testing as well. So as part of this, there is an evals module within our agent builder, which I'll show you in a few moments. And what it does is you can provide it with hundreds of different questions and see what kind of answers that your agent is going to give in response. All right. So the first thing that we said we were going to do is, yep. Well, because you're using OpenAI's Agent Builder, it's not going to be hosted on OpenAI. Hosting is kind of a weird thing. So yes, it's going to be hosted on OpenAI because whatever you're calling is going to be living within OpenAI. However, you can run this locally. So if you have the workflow ID, which we'll get in a few minutes, I can run this from the command line. So if I can run it from the command line, then you can run it within your own call center on your own servers, or you can run it in AWS. You just have to write the Python code that will reference that workflow ID to make sure that that you're calling the right agent. but you're still going to be hitting OpenAI servers. There isn't a way for you to take the code that OpenAI has created using the agent builder and export that so it lives completely 100% remotely on your servers. You're always going to be charged for whatever it is that OpenAI is doing as part of this agent builder. So as yet, the other thing I would say, which I'm finding really refreshing, this is not a fully baked solution. I got to tell you, 100%. This is not. You aren't going to turn around tomorrow and replace your call center. You might replace your IVR. There are significant issues that we're going to have to deal with. One is the workflow. It works really well when you're asking one or two questions, but I wouldn't say it's going to work with the 27 questions that you get from the elderly caller or the frustrated my internet is down caller. But the good news is that even in the last week since I've been playing with this, there have been changes. So there's been improvements. So what I expect is in either as part of the 12 days of OpenAI or just slowly as OpenAI sometimes does, that you will see significant improvements and one or two things which will allow us to be able to say, okay, we can replace our call center or, well, our IVR at least with this. So, but I still think that, and maybe as part of that, they will allow us to export the code and run it remotely, but I'm not seeing that at the moment. Okay, I hope that answered your question. We got another one. Okay, let me go back to where I was. Okay, so the core engine of our technical support is this fine-tuned version of our ChatGPT model. So this is how it works. So what you do is you have our pre-trained LLM. It doesn't work with ChatGPT 5 yet. It works with ChatGPT 4, 4.1. And then what we have is we have all our text, which is our questions and answers, and we feed that into our LLM. And then out of it, we get our own personal LLM, which is our fine-tuned LLM. And I don't know if many people have played with that, but certainly for what we're doing here, it's great because it's basically whatever call center scripts you have, you're just going to throw them into our fine tuning, add it to the LLM, and then it's going to be able to answer those questions. Specific business questions which are not related to the general model that ChatGPT has. So where do we get these questions and answers? From existing recordings, call center scripts, or in this case, I just asked ChatGPT using the personas. So once we get those questions, we have to put them in a JSON file, which looks like this. So this is the first thing. So, and I took this from this particular example, actually comes from a blog that's in the resources. And I sent out a message just before the call to say all of the resources, links, anything that I'm using here will be in the slides, and the slides will be posted first thing in the morning up to our meetup group. So if you signed up, you're going to get the slides. And then I also gave you where the GitHub repo is if you want to play along with us too as well. So anyway, we have our messages, which would be, how do I update my billing information? I forgot my username. What should I do? How do I reset my password? Those sort of things. Now, in order to put them into fine tuning, we have to get them, our messages into it. Each message has to be on a single line. So, we use, in my code, I have this create JSON L.py. So instead of it being a JSON file, it's a JSON line file. So if you have a JSON file which is in this format, which ChatGPT can do for you, you just run the code and it will go and create this version. And then we can upload this to our fine tuning in the playground, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, so if we go into the OpenAI playground and we click on fine tuning, we're going to upload our JSON file. Let me go just show you so I can show you what that looks like. So I don't know if many people have played around with the agent much at all. Oops. Yeah. Yeah. Completely different. Why am I logging in again? RAG is file storage. So there's three things that we're doing. So we're doing RAG. We're doing fine tuning first, which is this questions and answers. We're doing MCPs, which is talking to a database, and the third one we're doing is file storage. So within here here's where the agent builder is. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Here's where my model is. Here is the storage. So that's where the files are. So this is what you would do at RAG. So RAG is retrieval augmented generation. So in here, what I have is I have my plans, which is one of the things that actually, the family plans, the basic plans, everything else, I uploaded it here. And that's really what RAG is. And then fine tuning is different. So it's taking the file that I just had and my questions and answers. So if I ask it, how do I update my subscription? It's going to say you need to go to your website and click on the subscription, change subscription link. So it's something that's very specific. RAG is not going to get you that. RAG is basically what kind of plans do you offer? So it's whatever core information that you have in PDFs and Word docs, all that sort of thing. You throw that into the storage, which is RAG. And then if you have a series of fine-tuned questions and answers that if the LLM gets asked a specific question, you want it to give a specific answer, that's what that does. So hopefully that explains that. So in order to do it, sorry, go on. Yeah, so you're dead right. So basically what fine tuning does is it breaks the weights that it has and replaces them with new weights, which are created based on whatever questions and answers that you gave it. Okay, if you want to do it, you basically go in here, you choose whatever model that you want to use. Like I said, I just use 4.1. There is no access to fine tuning 5.5 yet. Maybe something to do with the reasoning that's in 5.x. You upload your file here, whatever the JSON-L file is. I think I have it under Faker. Doesn't matter. So you upload your file here and you create it. I am not going to create it because it took me for 100 questions. It took me 30 minutes. The most important thing that you can see everything that it's done here. So 12:45 to 12:14 to 12:45. Okay, so 20 some minutes. So, but what happens is it'll say everything, how it went. If there's any red, you don't want to use it. You can see that we use the input data JSON-L file. The thing that's important here, though, to recognize is the model that it created, because we're going to use that later when we go into our agent builder. So that's we now have a version of GPT 4.1, which is owned by Reese LLC, which is the organization, and it is the one that has been trained in our input data.jsnl. Okay. So what I probably should do then is just show you what it looks like. We can show it from the chat. We don't have to go into the agent builder yet. We will do in a second. So if I create a chat, what I do is I want to use my model. So if you remember, it was this one, cell OHFT. I'm going to say you are a friendly. Okay, I'm going to ask it, how do I upgrade my subscription? The other thing as well is that none of this is perfect. Here it actually gave the right answer. So it's log onto website, select the upgrade option from your account dashboard, choose which new plan you want using the information that we gave it. It doesn't give you it doesn't repeat the exact answer you had before. Basically what it does is it takes it and kind of like changes it to its own chat GPT version of whatever your original answer was for the question. Okay. All right. So that's the first part. The first big part is our fine tuning. If we want to go into our call center agent to use that, so basically what we do is we want to go into the model and say that we're using our ChatGPT agent. So I should show you that because we haven't actually gone into the agent builder. So the agent builder is here in the playground. You can see that there's a bunch of different templates. So the hard part about using this part of ChatGPT, so for all of the work that I've done in the past, if I had a problem in ChatGPT, oddly enough, I can't ask ChatGPT because it's usually trained up to, I don't know, June 2025, and this new stuff comes out in October. It's no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So usually what I used to do is I'd go to GitHub and I'd see what I could find on GitHub repos. But this stuff is not saved anywhere. So it's saved on Agent Builder in the playground. This is the playground platform.openai.com. But I don't see any way of exporting it yet. You can export it as code, but you're still calling the workflow. So it's yeah, it's kind of it's hopefully that will change in the future. But there are some great examples. So the customer service one is where I started. So you can see it's very similar to what we have. There are some other examples which are for document comparison. So there's a couple of things out there. There also isn't an awful lot, usually in that there's cookbooks that ChatGPT do for us, but there aren't a ton of those yet either. Okay, so we have a start, and you can see here we have the different nodes. So we have agent, we have classify, so you can sort it into different categories. So maybe we could use that to say this is a technical question, this is a billing question, that sort of thing. There's notes if you want to put notes in there. There's file search, which is basically what we would do is we could link that the RAG stuff that we want to do, which we're going to do later. There's guardrails. Let me show you. Put in a guardrail. So let me break that node. I'm going to put it here. Oops. If it doesn't work one way, do it the other. So on our guardrails, we have lots of different things. We have the ones I want would be prompt injection detection and maybe jailbreak. So that would be, if somebody's going to want to hack my agent, I want to make sure that I have something that's going to stop them. There's other things in here too as well. So not suitable for work, URL filters, custom prompt check, PII. So that's pretty huge if you're doing anything healthcare. You want to make sure that there's no healthcare information being passed around. HIPAA is what, 60 grand an event. So that's something that's really cool. And when I did this last week, there was 4 things here. So as you can see from the notes. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. Okay, if we want to use our agent in here, we have access to the agent that we created. So if I can find it, yeah, there it is. And if I want to run it, what I do is I run this here and I say, oops, if I could spell. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It shows you where it goes. It's going through the guardrails. Yep. There. Yep. Great question. We have this user approval, so you can put in a manual step so somebody actually has to approve it before it gets updated. I will say that all the examples that I'm going to show tonight with MCP are read only. I would be, we're going to do it eventually, but I'd be pretty careful about how you would architect something that's actually updating the database. The first thing, I haven't done it in this, but all call centers have a thing called wrap codes. When the call is finished, basically the call is wrapped up. What's the wrap code? So usually it's like, what did you do? Change billing. So you have a code for change the person's password, change their billing, or whatever else. So that's the first write that I'm going to do to this. But MCP, you've probably heard, have lots of security holes. So you want to make sure that you know what you're doing when it comes to MCP. I don't even have an auth token set up in the MCP that I'm going to use tonight, just because I'm trying to get something useful that you can play around with. But you got to make sure that you have security in place. You got to make sure that I got ChatGPT to generate my code. So, I'm sure I could do a SQL injection if I started playing around with it. For those in the hacking community, I could do little Bobby tables and then destroy everything. So you want to make sure that your MCP is rock solid before you expose it to the outside world as part of a chatbot or as part of the Twilio thing that we're going to show later. But if you want to manually do it, yeah, you can put a manual process in here where somebody actually stops it. So pause is for a human to approve or reject a step. So that's probably a pretty good way to start off, making sure that you don't cause complete mayhem. So yeah, did we talk about everything? That's a great question, by the way. Thank you. Classify. Sorry, go on. Any custom code? Oh, code? I haven't really seen anything yet. I'm expecting that to come in. Really, I gotta believe that there's a place to put that in here. Let me show you what else is going. No, Phil, unfortunately, no, not at the moment. But yeah, I gotta expect that's coming. So there's a couple of things going on here. So we can. Here is what our workflow ID is. So that's cool. And if we go the chat kit, basically we just use the chat kit, and I'll show you in a second, and add the workflow ID to get it to work. Maybe I should copy that because I'm probably going to need it. And then we have the agents SDK, which is here is the code. But it's using our ChatGPT thing in here, but it's still gonna call my workflow ID. Well, actually, there it's trace metadata. So yeah, I guess you get a lot of the code here. So this is from what I'm looking at here. This is basically exporting the entire code base. So take back what I said earlier on. We are calling our everything here is basically something that we could externally. Yeah, we're still going to call ChatGPT because it's going to be doing the LLM calls, but this sounds like that's got everything that we need to do to run this remotely. Okay, where was I going? So that's the code. Another thing is the evaluate here too as well. So it shows you all of the things that happened, where it started, where it finished, what went in and what went out. This can be really useful. You can see what the responses are. This is great for debugging, got to tell you, and it tells you how many tokens you use if you're thinking about the money. And then over here, there is a way for you to put in questions to grade whatever happened. So evals is probably where I'm going to spend a lot of my time testing in the future. Okay, where were we going with this? Yes, we exported the code. So what I want to do next is I want to open up I have two files that I gave you, which are in Agent Builder. So we have the sample code that I downloaded from just that code thing before. So this is what you get, but it doesn't actually show you how to run the code. So I have this test workflow that I found out on the internet, which is basically how you get to call it. So all that I'm doing is importing from sample, run workflow input, and see if that works. Okay, so I do believe I'm going to have to change my workflow ID. Test workflow. I need to start going faster. And in there, what have I asked? I've asked it a question of test workflow. What have I asked it? Probably the same thing. How do I upgrade my subscription plan? Okay, there you go. So same thing again. Always slightly different. It's never the same answer. Next. So showed you evals. We looked at the guardrails. You can see there that there were only 4 things last week. That's literally last week. So now we got 7 or 8. This is cool. I know that Gemini has something very similar. So if you're in the Google world, you can do something very similar with guardrails and the same sort of almost exactly the same terminology for NSFW and jailbreaks and prompt injection. All right, so great. We have our fine-tuned database for our technical support, and now we need to create our customers. So again, I'm not going to do this from scratch. It's a pain. So I just asked ChatGPT what to do. So we need a database of people and their phone numbers, as well as their code records. So I said, give me some Python code to generate customer data for a fake company called Or Mobile. So it created lots of different stuff for us. It's using the Faker Python library that I didn't even know existed before I started this. So all of the generated code is up on the GitHub repo, and the link is in the resources. And then if you haven't played with MCPs, if there's anything that you take away from what you do tonight, start looking at MCPs, because this is probably, for me anyway, the most important thing, and has saved me so much time over the last few months of all the cutting and pasting that you do from emails to CRMs basically, if you use an MCP we use Zoho, so Zoho CRM has an MCP, and we connect that to the Gmail. We basically just run a thing saying, hey, take all these emails for this deal with this email address and put it in our notes, and everything's just put in beautifully. So if you're doing any cutting and pasting, start looking at MCPs, and it's going to save you a ton of time. So MCPs will talk to databases, talk to GitHub, talk to Slack, so you can see where it's going. Hey, we did an update, going to send it to Slack. Talk to your local file system if you want. Gmail, whatever APIs, talk to APIs, REST APIs. It will talk to anything that you basically can connect. And the beauty is that you can ask the question in English, and it's going to give you it's going to update your API. So it's going to talk API language and fix everything for you. Okay, and then the last thing I did here was generate me a list of plans, prices, etc., and put it in a spreadsheet. And then we use that for our file storage. We put that in the file storage, and then within the file storage, that becomes our RAG that we were talking about earlier, where if we just ask it a question about what plans do we have, it's going to have that information. So it's all very well having a couple of spreadsheets and call records, but I need a way to query it from our agent builder. So give me code to put both of these attached files into a SQLite database. So it did everything for me. I asked it to add the plans afterwards. It did that. Pretty cool. So once we have our database, so SQLite is, you could do it with Postgres, you could do it with Oracle. It speaks different ANSI SQL. So if you tell it to do MS SQL, it'll do that. If you tell it to do Oracle SQL, it'll do that. Just like this is a toy database, so SQLite is perfect for this. Postgres would work too as well. And then I'm using DB browser just to make sure that I have all the data. So it creates my rmobile.db, which is my customer database. You obviously wouldn't use this because this is single threaded, so you want to make sure that you could put it on Amazon on an RDS there if you wanted to too as well. Okay, we have our database. So at my database, how do I get it to talk to? How do I talk to it via MCP? So what happens then is ChatGPT will generate some code for you to get it to talk to the server. You have to kind of ask it. You have to know what to ask it. So you can't just say, "Hey, I want SQLite to talk to SQLite via MCP," because there's different ways you can do MCP. One of them is STDIO, so it's going to assume that you want to do it locally. So it's going to say, okay, here's the version with STDIO, but I'm not doing it locally. I want to do it from my agent builder. So I want to do it over HTTP. So I want to be able to talk to it over HTTP. So that works. That's great. And then I'm running it locally, but I need actually a public IP address. So how do I do that? So the way that I do that is I use this tool called ngrok. So it's basically going to tell me how to use ngrok to create a public IP that will be bridged to my local host, which will allow me to be able to call this from Agent Builder. And all that code is in app2 and the Faker folder on the repo if you want to play with that too as well. Okay, so I'm going to do it locally first. So I do pip install. It's a weird pip install. So it's the MCP command line interface. So it's like this. All of the libraries that I've used, I put in requirements.txt. So if you just do pip install -r requirements.txt, you should have everything. Python app2.py to run it. And then there's this thing called the MCP inspector, which is great if you're trying to figure out if you have everything working correctly or not working correctly. It'll tell you all the queries that you have access to. Okay, so let me show you what I have first. So within our Faker database, we have our app.py. I went back and did this again, and actually ChatGPT, because it never does it never does it the same way twice. Just assumed I wanted the call records when I asked for it the second time, so it gave me it all on one nice little file. So this is going to create what you need, and it's also going to give you the plans. We have app1.py, which is now our the MCP thing, which is going to create my database. Oh, I didn't put app2.py in there. I will do that before we're finished. So this is creating the database, the SQLite database. And then if I there's a lot of moving parts here. Bear with me. All right, so I'm going to run the terminal. So I'm starting my MCP, just doing it locally. I'm going to have to do my environment variables, or sorry, my local environment. You can see that we have ormobile.db here. Okay, so it's going to take a few seconds to run up. So in a different folder. Okay. Need a faster machine. Okay. All right. So it's up and running now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my MCP inspector. Okay. This is the address for my MCP. You might get something else. I've already done this before, so you want to make sure that you're connected to the right one. And we go for tools. So we're going to list the tools and run a query, get customer calls, get plan summary. So let's do customer calls. Let's for customer 123. Scroll down, run tool, just to make sure that everything's running. So it's great. So this, if this works, it works. So it's giving me back the calls for Chris Cox. So now I know that it's working locally. So the next thing that I have to do is, here is and this is in the notes too as well. This is what I actually ran to get my inspector up and running. Okay. There is a website called ngrok. And this allows you to put your APIs online. So I'm running this locally. I want to be able to access it from the agent builder. How do I do that? So from the Windows store, I use Windows a lot just because I think most people are. It's probably easier on other things, but if you're running on Windows, you install it from the Windows store. You have to log in, so it'll give you the command for authenticating with ngrok so that it knows who you are. And then you can get, once you have your auth token, it will allow you to do this all the time. So if we want to run ngrok, I'm sure where the command is now. It is, I need to open yet another window. Okay, so I'm saying ngrok HTTP localhost 8000. So I now have this URL here, which is my forwarding address. We go back into our playground. No, I'll use that one. First thing, I always check everything in chat first before I do it in playground. So let me go into chat. I don't need this one. I want to use just ChatGPT 5.1. And I want to add a tool, which is MCP server. So I'm adding a tool, which is MCP server. So this is going to talk to my local machine. So the only thing I have to do is I have to add MCP at the end of it, so it knows where to go. I called it this before. I'm being very bold. I don't have any access tokens or auth tokens here as well, but honestly, it's a toy database, and all of them, the three things that I have, run query, find calls, and select customers, are not something that I worry about if somebody's going to play with it. This works correctly. I should get shown the tools in a second. Oh, man. Oh, no, don't do this to me. Maybe I have, no. Yeehaw! There we go. So we have get plan summary, get customer calls, run query. Make sure that you turn this off because otherwise it's going to ask you for approval every time. You don't want to do that. And then I can say things like give me the latest call from Chris Cox, that was our number 123 that we just did. Let's figure out what tools it has access to. It's going to figure out how to hopefully run the query correctly. Well, there you go. It gives me the latest call. If I go back into the database, I can find that the latest call was to this fake Bulgaria address, and it wasn't answered. It didn't cost anything. If we want to go to Agent Builder, not that one. Sorry. I guess I deleted it. So if we go create again, we go to my agent. The tools in here, basically what you do is you say MCP server and you do the same thing again. And then you have access to it within your agent. So that's cool. So now we have two things that we've done. We have our fine-tuned database, and we also have our fine-tuning, we have our database, and then the third thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we have access to our plans, to our RAG information. So this is our file storage. So what are we going to put in our file storage? We are going to put in core values, probably. How are you supposed to talk in a conversation? What is the most important thing? What are you supposed to say first? You should say what your department is. You should always address the customer as sir or madam, that kind of thing. You want to make sure that that information is in there so that your agent knows how to respond correctly. Any FAQs, you probably want to put them in there. So common questions and answers, and then product sheets. And the only problem that I had with the product sheet was when I got the SQL, when I got ChatGPT to generate my call records and my customers, I also got it to generate the plans, but it did it as a spreadsheet, and I had to print out my spreadsheet in PDF, and then that was the only way I could upload this. So the file storage doesn't like Excel spreadsheets, but it's great with PDFs. So in this case, what I did was say, okay, I want to create, there's two types of storage, file storage and vector storage. So vector storage, essentially what that does is it changes it into embeddings. The embeddings means that it's going to be allow it to be, it's a searching mechanism for text. So it's going to be able to find, if you ask it for plans, it's going to know that all the plans are together in the embedding, so it's going to list out all the plans. It's basically, it's a SQL search for files. If you just put it in files, it's going to be harder to find it. If you put it in vector stores, it runs an embedding model, which makes sure that the ChatGPT will be able to find it much easier. Okay, so if we upload our plan spreadsheet, I didn't put anything else in, but you could put lots of other stuff too as well. Okay, let's go because we are starting to get up to the hour mark. Okay, so we have all the elements for our call center now. I'm going to walk through the finished version and show you what it looks like. So here we have our last call agent. So this has got the MCP tool that we just talked about. Here we have our technical support. So this is using the fine-tuned question and answers that we talked about. And here we have our tools. Basically what I did here is I said add file search. And once I say file search, it's going to ask me what files I want to include. And I'm just going to get it to include what I had before. So triage is we have our start, we have our guardrail, jailbreak to turn prompt injection onto as well. We have our triage agent, which is saying classify it as last call technical support. It's looking for these terms. And if I'm saying, hey, I want to have the last call, or my internet is down, what do I do? It's going to pass them to the different engines, to the different agents. And it's going to use different tools based on what that is. And then it's going to end. So let's run this real quick. Let's say Well, let's do something a bit harder. Is Chris Cox? Yeah, I guess the main thing here is I don't trust this yet. I don't trust that it's going to get the right answer each time. Um, okay, see, saying that the okay, well, actually, I do know what that is. That is because I was using one, and I need to go and add my server correctly again. Go back to where we were. Because every time that you create the server using ngrok, it's going to recreate it. So it doesn't actually, the previous one that I had doesn't exist anymore. Okay, like I said, always turn this off. And if we try to run it now, hopefully it works through this time. I got last call agent correctly. If the MCP is up and I can see it, it should be able to get the answer. Okay. Yeah, got customer ID. So next we should be able to get the. Yep, here we go. There's the most recent call, like we said. Okay. All right. So now we have our basic agent built. And I did run the 3 different versions. So this was the one that was for the MCP. This is the one that was for technical support, and this is the one that was for plans. But don't really have a lot of time to do it just yet. Okay, so we can call our agent from the command line. Not exactly user friendly. Multiple ways to deploy our agent. We can make it a chatbot. We can call the agent using Twilio. We can make it into a widget. I'm not going to go into. We're going to do the first two if we have enough time. The widget doesn't make any sense for example tonight, as it just kind of updates a single field. There's a travel agent example in the resources that uses a widget. So if you want to check that out, that's pretty self-explanatory. So OpenAI gives you a sample code. Again, the link is in the resources that you can use to get a vanilla chatbot. You can change the look and feel to match your own website, whatever you want to do. So how do we do that? So we deploy the agent, which is the agent that we just looked at there. I have to go get its workflow ID. We clone the starter kit from the URL in the repo. From the repo and the resources, we copy the workflow ID and OpenAI key into our .m file, npm install, and npm run dev, and we should be pretty good to go. So let's try that real quick. I'm gonna need another one. Too many screens. Our bars are low and our service is lower. So what it was. Okay, so it's OpenAI chat kit. Let's start this. I don't want to kill the other sessions because I want my MCP to stay. Okay, so everything should be fine there. Okay. So npm run dev. Can't do that. I have to go back to the URL to get my agent, make sure I have the right agent. So the way that you do that is, let's go code. Let's copy this. We go back to our code here. And in our .env file, we got to make sure that that is the right one. Whoops. Yep, it's the same one. So you got to make sure that that is whatever the workflow ID was before, whatever your open A key was. I will go delete that after we're finished here. Okay, so we follow a link. So hopefully we have our own chatbot here. So obviously this is pretty vanilla. So, but you have access to everything. You have access to the style sheets. You have access to the code. You have access to anything if you want to make this your own. Okay, what family plans do I have? Hey, thanks for hanging out, guys. This is obviously like taking quite a while. So I really appreciate, first of all, you signing up. Great that you're hanging on. Okay, it doesn't even know what I'm talking about. So it went for the plan information, but it didn't know what I wanted. Yeah, there you go. Finally, we get the plans. So that's coming from the spreadsheet that I created for the for my fake database. So this is the file that I uploaded to the file storage. So it's basically taken that PDF, taken that information, and put it into my chatbot. Very cool. All right, almost done. Okay. The second thing, this is kind of a bit harder. Don't think I really want to go into this because it's probably going to take another 20 minutes. But I did get this working with Twilio. So chatbots are great, but really, if I'm trying to replace an IVR, I want to make sure that I do it. I have to have a phone interface. So there is another really good demo that OpenAI gave, which is the OpenAI real-time Twilio demo, the aptly named. You have two parts of it. You have the web app, which is the web app that you see, and then the WebSocket server. So the web app is kind of a Next.js app, and then the WebSocket server is an Express backend that handles connection from Twilio. You do need a Twilio account. It's not hard to set up, and it's pretty easy to get going. So the demo currently uses the GPT-4o for the voice, so it thinks and responds in voice. So I didn't manage to get the agent builder connected to this, which I think is probably the main reason why I don't really want to do the demo just yet. That's a work in progress. When you go through it, it has this really cool way of making sure that you do everything correctly. So when you run the npm run dev, you have to it'll open your Twilio console, make sure that you have everything in there. This is the number that we're using. So from my Twilio account, it gets you to once you run the npm run dev for the WebSocket server, that's going to turn on. You got to run ngrok, which if you remember, we'd use to expose our local host, so it's a public IP. And then we just have to update the webhook URL, which it's going to do that within your configuration files. You click Let's Go, and then if you call this number, which is my Twilio number, it's not up and running at the moment. I can ask it things like, how do I change my subscription? And it's going to do the same thing as what we had before. Okay. So to-do lists. So there's a lot going on this evening, but there's still lots more that we're going to do. So I'm probably going to do a part two of this sometime in the future. So all call centers exist on reporting metrics. So first call resolution, average handle time, customer satisfaction, those sort of things. The other thing is you really need to be able to hand off to a human agent. Now, the handoff that we did here was very text based. So it's basically you're not handing it off for somebody else to talk on the phone. You're handing it off for somebody else to be able to get an email or something to say that is this okay? Do you agree with this commission plan? Do you agree with this contract? That kind of thing. So that needs to happen. The other thing is wrap code. So every call in a call center will have a wrap code. So I need to change the server.py code that ChatGPT gave me to allow us to write to the database, which isn't really a problem. But um, we do need to add some security to our MCP server. So at the very least, we need to add an auth token, especially if we're updating our database. And then we also need to screen for SQL injection. So, if somebody's going to say delete star from table, customer list, customer calls, that's going to cause you an issue if that actually gets passed off to the MCP and runs as a command. The other thing I want to do is testing. So OpenAI is a really good testing platform under the eval tabs that we kind of barely touched on. I need to thoroughly test lots of call samples to make sure our agent's behaving. So kind of the overall result I'd give it is kind of a 7 out of 10. It's not as stable as I was hoping for, but if I was a betting man, I'd say that the next revision is going to start replacing call centers, and definitely we'll be returning to this in the future. So next month we're going to be looking how to call your website from within ChatGPT using the Apps SDK. It was kind of rolled out pretty quietly. They did mention it in the OpenAI Dev Day, but looks like everybody has access to it now. And then last year, the 12 Days of Christmas started December 1st. New features were rolled out every 12 days, so have a look for that. There's something very compelling. We'll probably look at that too. Here's all the resources. So group chats and ChatGPT, that was one of the cool things that came out this month. I can't believe that didn't happen before. So that I thought that always existed, so that multiple people could be in the same chat. So that now exists. It's my fine-tuning example. Some more information about fine-tuning. Our widget YouTube, the OpenAI widget YouTube, if you want to do widgets instead of the chat kit, the URL for the chat kit, and then the real-time Twilio if you want to play with that. And then I do need to add my own GitHub repo, which is github.com/GodfreyNolan/agent builder, which I will add before I put these up. Okay, and with that, I'm going to stop the share. And are there any more questions? Yeah, let's go. It used to be extortionate, but not anymore. So it's a couple of dollars at most. So it used to be, it's like all things with, and you're also using 4.1, so it's a cheaper LLM. Like all things with ChatGPT, when they first come out, they're just insane. And then after 5 or 6 months, like the real-time API was a fortune. Now I don't even think about using it. Sora the same. It's expensive. I expect that to drop. So a lot cheaper than I expected is the answer. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we did a whole fine tuning thing in the past. So if you go back and look at some of the earlier stuff in the playlist, it'll be in there. Can you do auth based? What does that mean? Okay, context window. Yes, there is just a single user. You can't do multiple users. In fact, the Twilio demo, there's an issue with it. If somebody calls, if multiple people call at the same time, it has a habit of dropping. So yeah, there's a lot of single threaded stuff here now that needs to be fixed. Okay.
So, any thoughts on exposing APIs as MCP servers versus wrapping the API in an agent flow and exposing the flow? I've had mixed results with customer agents correctly using our MCP server, whereas when I wrap the API call with my own agent, I can better manage how the agent calls it, especially if the process is iterative.
Never tried it, but really interesting. So you could hide your uh, agent flow behind before. I don't know. I don't know if that's the architecture that I would go for, but maybe that's something that we should look at when we do part two of this, because that's a really interesting approach. But it just hadn't occurred to me. Can we have incremental embedding? Um, With RAG, you can. With file tuning, yes, you can. It looks like you can add both. Yeah.
Okay, and
Chunk
then
embeddings. Okay. If else, the only solution you're dealing with hundreds of agents. Yeah, that's an issue. So there's classifications and if else. So if you're dealing with hundreds of different types of, well, you're not really dealing with hundreds of agents so for an organization. So if you're this is not, we're not passing it to an actual person. We're passing it to a classification. So if you can, just like you would do in a normal call center, if you can classify the calls that you get into a specific type of agent, then yeah, if else is not great, but it's if the only logic that we have is if else and while, and there's nothing else. So that's what we have to deal with at the moment. I also will say that when you have multiple questions, the agent builder can get confusing. That would just be my lack of experience. So this is, like I said, that's why it gets a 7 out of 10. This is not something that's going to replace a large organization call center. Definitely not yet. Oh yeah, Dustin, holiday party. Anybody who is in the Metro Detroit area, Dustin is having a holiday party. I will put a link to it for all the different tech groups in Southeast Metro. I'll put a link in it tomorrow. What email I should reach out to get PPT? You'll get it tomorrow morning. All of the large tech companies have dashboards. Yep, on the meetup page. All the large tech companies have dashboards to use their AI services. If you found one company's easier to use than others, I just like OpenAI. I gotta tell you, it's always easier. It's the for me, it's like the Apple of OpenAI companies. I know that Mike likes Anthropic better, but I guess it comes down to personal preference. I
yeah,
just
but
think that tracing and evals is amazing.
yeah, but Anthropic, the difference is what they're targeting though. So like the scope of my work is more on coding with it, and all of these kind of UI features and pipelining things, I would not choose Anthropic if that was the case, unless the
Yep.
enterprise tier is completely different. I don't see it working the same way.
Okay. So I recommend OpenAI over all else at the moment. That might change. Always buy a monthly pass, never buy the annual pass because things change so quick. Guardrail authentication via API retrieved data. Mm, don't understand the question. Okay. Yeah, earlier session. I will put that up tomorrow. It's actually already in the discussions in the meetup.com.
Oh yeah, it is there. Okay, good.
Yeah. Can a customer in one prompt ask multiple questions? Yes, you can ask multiple questions, but it's not great at it yet. So if I ask like the three questions, um, it handles the questions and it remembers what you're going to do. So if like for example, if you like when you do an IVR and you give it a credit card information and it asks you the same information three times, you would each of the different agents would have access to the chat history, so you wouldn't have to do that. So yes, it should be able to handle multiple questions. It just doesn't handle it well yet. Yeah, Gemini 3 is pretty cool. Like I said, always buy the monthly subscription, never the annual
Yeah,
one.
things change
Um,
fast. It Gemini is really exceptional for general use cases in a way that only OpenAI was, I would say. I
yeah,
still think Claude is the best for coding.
the codex is great for GPT 5.1 codex. Okay, get rid of the next ones.
Okay.
Any experience with LangChain, LangGraph is an agent framework? Yep, we touched on that in a previous one. I will say the reason that people will use Agent Builder is because they're no code people. So this is for the no code environment. If you were going to do this, an agent, you would use Crew AI or you'd use the agent framework as OpenAI. But a lot of people want to use this just to have their drag and drop interface. The enterprise editions are very different than the personal free. Can you demo the enterprise editions so they're the ones we'll be using for any grant? I have no idea if the agent builder is different from. I'm on the team, so I'm on the organization. I'm not on the enterprise. I don't know.
Well, I think Verizon was using this a month ago when I was calling them because I had a voice agent who I had to do physical prompt injection just to get a person at my house. I just literally started talking madness, and they finally gave me somebody.
That's really funny. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. Um, Anybody want to hit me up on Meetup or whatever? Just no pig butchering, please. I've seen a lot of that over the last 2 weeks. But if you want to hit me up with a real question, I'll always answer, or hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to talk.
And he also is happy to give out his crypto wallet.
I haven't tried GitHub Spec yet. Um, that's good. Dustin, we should talk. Uh, Glad to hear it. Cool. Okay. All done.
You made it. You got through
Yay.
it. Okay, just a quick reminder. You can find written versions of these meetups and our other YouTube videos on it's Reese.com, right?
Hmm.
I totally forgot. Sorry. And also check it out on the YouTube channel. You could get all of the previous meetups that we've held. Um, I'm gonna have a QR code that's gonna fly up when we end here, and uh, you can subscribe to our newsletter there.